Hello, welcome Boundless members. My name is Hayley and I'm going to be bringing you a monthly gardening video to show you absolutely everything you can be doing at the moment, whether it's sowing seeds, chitting potatoes or getting your ground ready for the growing year ahead. So today I'm going to be showing you how to sow some leeks, broad beans and sweet peas, and also some chillies and peppers that you can be doing indoors right now on your windowsill. So first of all, I'm going to start with the chillies. So these seeds, they're very small seeds, so you don't want to miss them. You don't normally get a huge amount in a packet, you normally get about 10 to 12, so you really need to take care of these seeds. So I'm growing quite a lot of different varieties this year, and I always do mine in a heated propagator. So this is something that I just plug in at home, leave it on my windowsill in the most sunniest room possible, and these basically need a lot of heat to germinate. If you don't have a heated propagator, there are other methods that you can use. So you can get a standard seed tray, just like that, and you can sow your seeds as normal. And then what you can do is you can get a plastic bag. Now try and reuse these things as much as possible. So when you've sowed your seeds, you can pop them in your bag like that, and you can stick that underneath your radiator on the floor. Now you just need to be careful that as soon as these do germinate, you need to get these bags off and even these cloches off to let as much sunlight in as possible. Once they have germinated, it is not necessary for them to have a ton of heat. So you can move them away from the radiator, you can turn your propagator off and let them grow happily indoors, because you'll have a lovely climate inside. Now, if you have struggled with seed germination in the past, then another good tip is to line a piece of Tupperware with some kitchen roll. And if you make this damp, it doesn't need to be sopping wet, it just needs to be damp for the seeds to sit on. And then you can take your seeds, just sprinkle them on top. Again, do exactly the same, leave this near a radiator, and you will start to see these seeds sprouting. As soon as you see the roots coming out, pop them into some soil. And now soil is the next topic on my list. You can use multi-purpose compost. However, I have found that seed sowing compost is the best for your seeds. It is formulated to give your seeds exactly what they need in that start of life. Now, the bags do look small, but they are deceiving. This compost is really dense. It holds its moisture a lot better than multi-purpose compost, which means again, you don't have to water constantly, but also your compost goes further. So although you may be thinking, well, I could get a huge bag of multi-purpose compost and a small bag of seed compost, actually this is going to go further. The other thing you can do is, if you really want to sort of save money, you can mix your compost together, so you can have half multi-purpose and half seed sowing. So I am going to show you how to sow some seeds. I've got my seed packets here. I'm going to go for some aubergines first, and a lot of these seeds are grown for the UK climate. So I do grow mine in a greenhouse. However, you can grow them on your windowsill, in your sheltered patio, or even make up some cloches to make them extra warm in there. So first I'm going to get my seed soil. You want to make sure that this has been at room temperature for quite a while to warm up, because if you've got it straight from the garden centre, it's going to be a little bit chilly and your seeds won't appreciate that. So we're just going to fill this up around 1 centimetre from the top of your seed tray, like so. We're going to get our seeds. Again, as I said, these are really fiddly seeds. So I'm just going to pop in about 3 seeds 1 centimetre apart, like so. And then we're going to top with some compost, just a light sprinkle, and it is as simple as that. Now you can pre-water your compost, so you can pop it in the pot, water your compost, pop your seeds in, and then give your seeds a coat of compost. If you water them afterwards, what's likely to happen is you're going to move those seeds around. They're not going to be in the place where you want it to be, and they might go deeper into the soil as well. So the last thing is just to make sure you label them, because there's nothing worse than trying to figure out what you've planted where. So yes, that is going to go somewhere warm, somewhere humid, and that's going to be the perfect temperatures to get them germinated. And next I'm going to move on to leeks. Okay, so leeks are one of my all-time favourite things to grow. You need to do a few things to start them off, but when you have them planted out in the ground, they look after themselves. So this is actually a leek that I have grown this year. So this was sown last January, and they're still going strong, still getting some lovely produce from them. So first of all, I'm going to water the soil, because again, these seeds are absolutely tiny. Now the variety that I've got here is called Neptune. So I've been growing this variety, this is the 3rd year now, and it has done brilliantly every year. So I'm just going to sow probably about 50 seeds here. We're not going to need all of these. Just pop them onto the surface. So I'm growing these in an old mushroom pot. This is great for recycling, and you want to be able to find things that you can reuse. So I've just put some drainage holes in the bottom. This is the 2nd year I've been using this mushroom pot, so keep every little bit of waste that you can and try and reuse it. And then we're just going to go in with, again, about 1 centimetre of soil on top. The leeks are going to like it cool and light, so these can go somewhere frost free, but they don't need any heat for germination. So within a couple of weeks, these are going to start coming up. You want these in full sunlight again, because we don't want any leggy seedlings. So that's leeks. You can use this method exactly the same with onions if you're growing them from seed. If you are planning on growing from sets, I will be talking about that next month. So if you've got your sets, keep them somewhere cool and out of direct sunlight, and I shall be showing you how to start them off. Broad beans and sweet peas are actually a really hardy crop. You can plant them in the autumn time outside. Sweet peas, I'd suggest you start off in pots in a greenhouse. But my soil is heavy clay behind me, and although we have a lot of sunshine and warmth because I'm on the south coast and we're a bit protected by the downs, we just have the rain and the damp conditions that the beans just don't like, and they're going to rot. So that's why I always start mine off in pots. Now you may be thinking these look like strange pots, but these are actually root trainers. So again, beans and peas love to grow in deep rooted containers. So if you don't have any root trainers, just get as deep pots as possible. These are my root trainers that I'm going to use for my raw beans. So basically these just pop together like that and fix together like so. So you just need to fill them up with soil. The great thing about root trainers is that when you come to plant your seedlings out, you can open the root trainer like that and get your seedling out with all the roots completely intact. So these are definitely recommended for things like beans, peas, sweet corn, love deep rooted plants. So these are my broad beans. The variety I always use is Demonica. And you can see the size of those are going to be perfect for those big root trainers, whereas my sweet peas, they're slightly smaller. So that's the size of the sweet peas. So there's quite a big difference between the broad beans and the sweet peas. So my recommendation is always judge things based on the size of the seed. So if you've got a big seed, you want a big pot. If it's small seed, a small pot. Again, seed packets, they are going to be your best friend. They're going to give you all the information on there. So a lot of the things that I'm growing at the moment might not be applicable for people, say, living in Scotland, because your climate's that much different. So always read the seed packet and judge it based on when your last frost date is going to be. So I am going to get sowing of the sweet peas. So I'm just going to get my dibber. I'm going to go down about 1 centimetre and I'm going to make a hole in each of these root trainers. Like so, and then I'm just going to get my sweet peas and pop it in the hole. So I will be taking these home to give them some extra warmth just until they've germinated, and then as soon as they have, I'm going to stick them in my greenhouse, which is unheated. If you don't have a greenhouse, then just stick them somewhere cool in the house, like a conservatory, or even outside, just somewhere a little bit sheltered away from that frost. Exactly the same with the broad beans. I'll be using exactly the same method, making a hole. These will need a couple of centimetres deep into the soil, and again I will be taking these home. You can sow these right up till March. I normally do a sowing every few weeks of these, so then it gives me a lively flush of colour throughout the spring and early summer months. A little watering, and these seeds won't get moved when you water them in, so you've got no worries about watering afterwards. If your growing space is anything like mine, it is too wet and too muddy to do anything at the moment. However, there are some other jobs you can be doing. One of those is chitting your seed potatoes. So I ordered my seed potatoes a few weeks ago offline. You can get these from garden centres too, and the great thing about garden centres is they normally have sort of a pick and mix where you can take a few seed potatoes of each variety rather than getting a huge bag like this. You can also grow potatoes from sort of supermarket potatoes, however I haven't tried this before, and you do run the risk of introducing some diseases into your soil. Now you may be thinking, what does chitting potatoes mean? So this is basically going to give your potatoes a head start. Your potatoes are going to start forming eyes and shoots. So these shoots are where your potatoes are going to grow from when they're planted in the ground. And these shoots will grow naturally, and you just want to help them along. Now, if you've ever left a bag of potatoes in the back of a cupboard and got them out and they have gone crazy with shoots everywhere, we're not trying to achieve that. You want stocky, healthy shoots that are really short and that have been exposed to the sunlight. Now, by putting them in the dark, you're not going to get this. So you want to place them somewhere as cool and as light as possible. For me personally, I keep these in my downstairs toilet. Yes, I know, when gardening comes into play, everything goes into the house. So down there, we've got no radiators and it is really light down there. So you can either place your potatoes into sort of egg cartons, or you can put them into a seed tray like I've done. And all you want to do is make sure that all of the eyes are pointing upwards. Now, if you've got some really big potatoes like this and they've got lots of eyes on them, you can actually cut these in half. You want to do this now so then the cut area dries so it doesn't rot in the ground. And that means that basically you can get 2 potatoes out of 1. Now, I am growing quite a lot of potatoes, and that is because we are hoping to get married this year, and I'm going to be growing all the fruit and vegetables for the reception and also the flowers. So it's a big year for me, and that is why I've got so many potatoes. I have gone for Anya, which is this variety here, and these are a first early sort of salad potato. They've got a really lovely waxy texture to them and a nutty flavour. I've been growing these for years and I don't think I'll ever stop growing that variety. And then the other 2 varieties I've got is Cara and Picasso, and they are going to be perfect for me mashing. If you do want to do sort of a roast potato variety, I would recommend Golden Wonder, because they do crisp up lovely in the oven. So as I said, a chit in these will give them a lovely head start, because your first earlies, they're going to have quite a short growing season to them. So that extra growth that you can put on now is going to help them in the long run. It's not so essential with your main crop. So when we come to planting, I'm going to go through this with you, but I typically plant my first earlies around March, April time, and then I get my main crop, well, I stagger my second earlies between then, and then my main crop goes in around early May time. Now, this varies again depending on where you are in the country. We're really protected down here. Potatoes are not going to like frost. Now, over the next couple of months, keep checking on your potatoes to make sure that they're in tip-top condition. They are going to get a little bit squidgy, and that's absolutely fine and normal. If they start to look like they're drying out, just get a water bottle spray and spritz them with some water every now and again. But apart from that, you should be fine, and you should see some lovely healthy growth. One of the best jobs you can do this month is put on the kettle, get yourself a cup of tea or coffee and sit in the garden. By assessing your growing space, you can figure out the way that the light travels across the garden throughout the day. You can see where the wind direction comes from normally, and you can also look at what soil type you have. Now, planning is one of your best friends when it comes to gardening. Sometimes you don't plan and you think you can wing it and you can stick plants in wherever you like and not really think about what their individual needs are, and then they never grow properly, or they might not flower, or you might not get the abundant fruit that you would have done if you had just planned a little bit. So what I do is I draw out my allotment and my garden at home. I plan exactly where everything's going to go. So you can do things based on crop rotation. However, there has been recent studies to show that crop rotation isn't actually necessary. I would only rotate my crops if I had a problem in one area. If you've got brassicas and they get clubroot, then again, you wouldn't want to put them in the same bed as you did the year before. So I think it's all about planning ahead and also looking at companion planting. So there's things that you can plant together that work together really well. I am a big believer in working with the garden, with the animals and the wildlife that come to visit it, and sort of trying to work in harmony. I don't use any pesticides, I don't use any chemicals, everything is absolutely organic. So for me, I really do rely on nature taking over and helping out in those problem areas. Now, if you've brought a new plant over winter and you're wondering where to put it, the label and the seed packet is always the best way to tell. It normally tells you whether it needs full sun, partial shade or full shade. So again, you have to think about that, but not only about where the light travels over in your garden or your allotment, but what plants you plant nearby that may block that light. So sometimes with me, I like to plant sweet corn, so then I know the shadow is going to cast over where I'm going to put my lettuces, which would provide sort of a cooler, shadier environment, especially in the middle of summer. And that's going to help with things like that they won't bolt. So again, coming back to a tall plant like sweet corn, or maybe you've got some hedging or a lovely bush that you want to put in. Oh, you're right, Olive. You can use that as a wind protection to shelter the smaller, more delicate plants that you've got below. Now, at this time of year especially, I get all the seed catalogues and all the plant catalogues through the post, and I sit down and I go through them and think exactly what I want to grow. Now this year for me, it's quite specific what I want to grow. I want a lot of pink flowers, so I'm going with a lot of dahlias, a lot of cosmos, and they have got to be growing at a certain time for me to be able to pick them for my wedding in September. So if you are growing for an event, hopefully people will be this year, you do need to think about sort of growing times, when they're going to flower and what sort of conditions they need. If you get all your seed catalogues and your plant catalogues and you go through all the varieties you want and make a list, then you can start putting them into sections of the garden of where you think they're going to grow best. It's always a hard balance, and sometimes you don't get it right. I still don't get it right. There's never a year when you do get it 100% right, and that's fine. You learn from these things, you move the plants somewhere else, you try a new growing method, and you learn from it. And that is the thing with gardening. I don't think there's going to be a year that goes past when I'm not learning from gardening. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has been helpful. If you do have any questions, please do send them through and I'll be answering as many as I can in the next video. If you haven't already, make sure you join the Boundless Gardening Facebook group, because there's lots of conversation on there and you're going to get a real feel of that gardening community spirit.